Everybody, I'm back again with another toy review. This time I am reviewing the DC Collectibles Earth 2 Flash, also known as Jay Garrick. This is the Flash from Earth 2. For those of you who are familiar with who Jay Garrick is the original Golden Age Flash. Now, I'm not referring to the show. I'm referring to the comic book. Jay Garrick was the Golden Age Flash. He was the original Flash before Barry Allen came along, and much earlier than Wally West, who is my favorite Flash. I read the New 52 for a little bit, and I really like Jay Garrick's portrayal of how he's portrayed in the comic of the New 52. Or not the New 52, the Earth 2. Excuse me, the Earth 2. I like how he's portrayed, but I don't really like how he's sort of the comic relief. You know, the Flash is such a cool character, and they have the means to make him a more dynamic hero so he can stand with the rest of the Justice League. And I feel like they just, low-hanging fruit, we need comic relief. Well, let's just make the Flash the funny one. Let's make the Flash the funny one. Let's make him the dumb one. Let's make him the clumsy one. Let's make him the least coordinated one, despite the fact he moves at insanely high speeds on a regular basis, and his brain speeds up to compensate for how fast he's going. And they've established that in the comic book, his perception of things slows everything down, but because he's going so fast, everything appears as though it's going slower, but yet he's always portrayed as this like dimwit, comic relief. And I don't always agree with that. And I say that because I'm biased, because he's my favorite character. But, and I hate this expression, but it is what it is. When he's in his own comic, he's fantastic. He's smart, he's witty, he's funny, he can defeat any one of his rogues that he ends up fighting, putting with the Justice League. He becomes this bumbling idiot. And I don't always agree with that, but that's just what they do. And out of all the comedic characters that they do have, they choose to make the Flash the funny one, which isn't the case in his own books. But that being said, let's get into the articulation of this figure. So he's got an arm that goes around 360. It goes out to about that far. He's got a bicep swivel. Single elbow joint. He's got a forearm swivel. No hand swivel. Woo. Same thing on the other side. Goes out to about there. Single jointed elbow. Same thing, forearm twist. With his head, it goes around 360. What is going on with this thing? There we go. Got a head that goes around 360. Now, when you twist his head around, be careful with the wingtips on the side, because these things are super fragile. And if you muck about with them too much, your fingers will slip and they will break off. His head goes up to about there. It goes down to about there. And like his neck is really long, so when you look at it from the side and it just goes up, like when it goes all the way up, it just destroys the continuity of the sculpt. Look at that. It's on a ball peg, so you could just see it. No abdominal hinge, no waist swivel, no thigh swivel, but the foot does go out to about there, or the leg does go out to about there. Nothing back because it's stopped by the butt flap. My arch nemesis. Single jointed knee. and there is a thigh swivel, and there's a hinge here. Now, I don't want to mess with this thing because there are a few issues with this guy, and we'll get into it. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. I'm not a paint guy, and that's not a knock or a slight on anybody. I'm not a paint guy. I don't really know that much about paints or how they're applied in order to give you a definitive analysis on paint. But I will say this. I know enough about paint to know a bad paint job when I see it. And this definitely isn't the greatest paint job I've ever seen. It looks cheap. Like the paint looks cheap. It's got like this weird shine to it. Some of it's matte, some of it isn't. I will say this, it's colored within the lines. You know, it's colored within the lines, but the paint does look very cheap. If you manipulate the figure too much, what will end up happening is the paint will start to chip, and that can be a problem. As far as aesthetically, his face, and I'm sure you can probably already tell, like, the paint is just out of control around his helmet. Like, look at that. It's just out all over the place, and that is just, his visor is very cloudy. His visor is very cloudy. You can barely see his face. And then when you do see his eyes, he's got like this cockeyed thing going. He's got this weird looking face. Face is too thin. His lips are, it just, the head is not right for this. So this is supposed to be Jay Garrick, right? This is supposed to be like the first Flash. And to me, I just don't think this is a really good representation of Jay Garrick. But, you know, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, at least we have a representation of this Flash that we can say that we got. You know, he has some balance issues because of, there's ratchets inside here. It's not just like a smooth transition up and back. There's actually like little ratchets in here. And the ratchets are off considerably. So what that ends up doing is that ends up throwing his balance off. So he'll fall down. If you try to, if his leg wasn't bent like this, he would be on his back right now. He would definitely be on his back right now. I think that they sort of dropped the ball in not having him have fist hands or even interchangeable hands, period. Because, you know, his hands are just open. And I don't really know how I feel about that. You really can't do any dynamic like battle poses unless he's doing knife edge chops on somebody. You know, if you are a fan of the Flash, I would say pass on this guy. If you are also a casual fan of DC, I say pass on this guy. If you're a diehard Earth 2 fan, I would still say pass on this guy. Unless you're trying to complete your set, I'd say no. This guy is definitely a failing grade for me. I bought him because he was cheap, and I got him because he was the Flash. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and tell you that it is a good figure when it's not. I got it because it's the Flash. I got it because it was Jay Garrick. And I got it because it was cheap. And whereas I don't suffer from buyer's remorse for getting them, I still am able to, I guess, enjoy the figure, but understand where his flaws are. He's not very photogenic, or he's not as photogenic as he could be as opposed to other figures. But, you know, I own him. So I have him now, and he's just a figure that I would highly not recommend buying. If you're even like the most diehard Flash fan, I wouldn't recommend buying this guy. Save your money and buy somebody else. Even though I seriously doubt that they'll ever come out with another representation of this guy, I say pass. So until next time, I'm the Bay Area's only toy reviewer, Carl, and I'll see you next time.